Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. This is my 6th WAD progression update and this comes just after I've completed Memento Mori and just before I take on the mighty Plutonia Experiment. So just take a quick moment to go through Memento Mori, some of the highlights I have for it. I found it a real blast. I had loads of fun, and like all of the other WADs I've played before, I highly recommend this one to those who are looking to improve their skills. I would say, just like the warnings I've had, which turned out to be true, be aware that there's some fairly rough edges to this WAD set. So it's not always clear, what the route of progression is. There are some triggers that don't open up areas in the way they're expected, so it can fail and you might need to replay the map again. I've had a couple of breaks as well with things like soft locks or slow teleporters, inaccessible kills, and just a general feeling of awkwardness on some of the maps between the implementation for single player and multiplayer mode, where it looks like there are areas they should be getting to, but actually they're not accessible in single player. So they just stand out as being a little bit awkward. So just be aware of those. I wouldn't beat yourself up too heavily with trying to maximize all your kills or anything like that if that's your thing. This is definitely one of those where just get through the maps in a nice way and keep on moving. To keep up my stats and things on it, I've gone through the standard way getting all my kills, but I wouldn't advise people following in my footsteps to do the same. So the WAD is definitely more challenging than Moonblood, with a significantly higher kind of enemy count in the levels. So it does push you harder in places. And the general playthrough times for some of the maps are longer for me. But I would say, although it's generally tougher and generally like much higher enemy counts, there were very noticeably, there were far fewer kind of one-off challenging encounters. So the sort of ones where you end up in a small tight arena with 2 or 3 cyber demon, or you've got a fight that is just so grindy you're not sure if you can make it through. I just didn't have any of that with Memento Mori. I think all of the maps in Memento Mori were very playable for me and very completable for me. But they were longer, meaning that in some of them, if you don't balance the pace, how fast you're trying to go through the map well with, trying to stay alive, you can end up tripping up along the way. And one mistake, if you die, you end up replaying it again, and the maps are generally longer. So they can be kind of grindier in that way, but not because of specific fights. So I don't have any specific fight in any of this that caused me a problem. So that was nice. That was a nice change from before. I feel good about how my skills have improved. Definitely, I worked a lot on this in terms of keeping up my pace, keeping moving, and being more aware of the spaces that I'm in. So lots of sniping in this, lots of monsters in very awkward positions or on platforms or towers or windows or whatever it is, and lots of different types of monsters who are sniping you at the same time. So a lot of these maps, you need to keep on moving. You need to be aware of where you are. You need to keep be very kind of thoughtful about your routing through the map to pick up the weapons when you need them in that. And when you find those balances, the maps become much, much more manageable. So I've enjoyed that, and I've found my game increasing in that way, just kind of keeping moving and keeping a slightly higher pace to things. So I've enjoyed that. And again, no maps in particular that I had any struggles with. I would say that in general, I felt relatively overloaded with weapons, ammo, and health. So the point of these maps isn't to kind of resource starve you and see if you can make it through. They give you loads and loads of stuff, but they're a bit longer, and there are higher enemy counts. So you need to find the weapons and ammo, and there's health around for you. But generally, just find the right balance for how quickly you run them is how I found it. Just the highlights as well. Lots of positive highlights in the WAD for me. Really, really loads of them. I really enjoyed it. The biggest ones, probably top 4 for me. Map 9, High Tech Grave. I love that map. I love the style and the implementation. I love the fact that it's hard, kind of upfront, in your face, run and gun, no messing around. And I just really enjoyed that. It was a really nice change of pace when I got to it, with a relatively high enemy count at like 236 kills. Map 21, Twilight Lab, again, similar, fun tech-based map, large enemy count, and lots of exploring and routing of lots of little kind of connected areas. I really found that enjoyable. I actually enjoyed the routing of those, but again, very heavy run and gun with 323 kills, so really enjoyed that one as well. Map 23, Showdown. I think that's probably the most memorable map in the whole WAD, but certainly not the best one. I really enjoyed it. It's a very kind of wow map where it's got a beautiful central core. It's very compact. It's a slaughtery type map, but it's got great layout, great visuals. I had lots and lots of fun in that map, kind of running that one. But one downside to it was killing all the barons at the end who were up in the windows out of the way, and they're just very, very tedious to take down. But otherwise, a very, very enjoyable map. And then map 28, City of the Unavenged. And that's probably my favorite map from the whole WAD set. I just love the large outdoor space with lots of sniping enemies from all over the map of lots of different types. You have to get that area under control. And once you've got the large sprawling areas under control, you start going into some of the individual kind of locked off spaces and taking them down one at a time and working your way through. And I just had so much fun with that. I really, really enjoyed playing through it. It was definitely my longest run through. So I think it was just over 40 minutes to get through it. But I can run that map pretty comfortably, and I completed it a few times just because I enjoyed it so much. So definitely look out for that one. Other ones, just generally enjoyed the the secret maps, so Viper and the Hidden Slime Factory. They were just good fun generally. But I thought I'd make a specific mention for just some of the visual detailing that I really enjoyed in this WAD. So map 13, the Inmost Dens 2. I really loved the church in that with the stained glass windows and the presentation for it all. That was just a beautiful area to be in, and it was just so impressive to be there and to be dealing with all the monsters and things at the same time. And also for similar reasons, map 17, House of Thorn, where it's a house, and it's got all the Doom cute around the house with tables and chairs and beds and that. And it was just a lovely, fresh kind of change in pace for all the themes. So I just really enjoyed that one as well. So all in all, really, really enjoyed it. A big factor, I think, of the enjoyment for me was the fact that there's so much variety as you move through the WAD. So lots of different map authors involved as a collective to make this WAD set. And I think it just kept the playthrough really fresh for me, where there's very different visually distinctive maps. So you could be in one that's an outdoor area. The next one you've got, I don't know, a crate maze and things to deal with. The next one is a house. And then also things like the pacing or the cadence of them is changing. So, large, heavy maps with loads of monsters. Then you get to the next one. It's a bit more of a breather one with a smaller set of enemies. And I just liked the change in pace of that. It meant that it never felt stale. It never felt samey. It never felt grindy. And I could get through them in a nice way. And I say, I really enjoyed through it. Working my way through this, and there were no kind of specific fights that concerned me in any way. So just lots and lots of fun. So this is my snapshot that tracks my progress as I work my way through all of the WADs. You can see that I've updated this to show a tick mark against Memento Mori, indicating that WAD has now been completed. We've got a bullseye or a target against the Plutonia Experiment, indicating that is the current WAD I've just started playing through. And you can see a question mark against Scythe, indicating that is the next WAD that I'm expecting to take on once the Plutonia Experiment is complete. And just say really quickly as well, I've put a small little target against the original Doom, and my expectation here is just for a bit of fun to have a nostalgic playthrough, a relaxed playthrough of the original Doom as a means to break up and have a bit of a breather between some of the bigger and larger maps that I'm working through at the moment. So as I've progressed through all of the different WADs on the list here, the level of difficulty or challenge has started to increase. So I thought it'd be really nice to play through Doom in a relaxed way as a bit of a palate cleanser between heavy maps and also as a bit of a breather between them and a warm-up. So I'm looking forward to doing that. It also addresses my my completionism, where I'd love to see this at the end with all green tick marks against everything and get rid of some of the red X's for WADs that I've skipped. So that's my plan. But again, my main focus will be on the Plutonia Experiment. And if we hop to the DoomWiki to have a look at that, this is what we find. We've got the DoomWiki, and this is the Plutonia Experiment. So the Plutonia Experiment is a 32 map megawad that was released for Doom 2, and it was a release from id Software. So this is a set of maps that were made by the brothers Dario and Milo Casali, and they were under contract from id Software, and they were put together with the WADs from TNT Evolution to become Final Doom. And Final Doom was released by id Software in 1996. So Dario Milo Casali created the Plutonian Experiment for id Software, who released it as part of Final Doom. A very, very interesting history there is for those who are interested in it. If we scroll down here, we see the levels, and we've got 32 levels broken into a number of different episodes. We've got Earth levels, Hell levels, Devil Hive levels, and secret levels. Okay, now I highly recommend you have a look at Dario Casali's YouTube channel. More recently, he's had a kind of nostalgic playthrough of the Plutonia Experiment himself. So he's got a playlist here with all 32 maps listed in it. And it's been very, very interesting for me to watch that, you know, where with the nostalgic of one of the original creators, like he obviously created this with his brother. So looking at through that perspective and, you know, seeing the reactions to playing through these quite snipey levels has been, from the original creator, has been really, really interesting. So I highly recommend that. And one final thing to point out as well is there is a community released MIDI pack for this called the Plutonia Midi Pack. This was released you know, by the Doom community, who hustled together to create a set of excellent MIDIs to go along with the excellent maps that were provided by the Casali brothers. And this was spearheaded or led by James Paddock, or Jimmy, in you know, on the kind of Doom World forums. So they've come together with this really, really good pack. I'm going to be using this pack through my playthrough. So if we hop into my standard ugly Excel sheet, this is where we are. We've finished Memento Mori. This is now all complete. And we get down here, we see the next big chunk of maps, which is the Plutonia Experiment. So we've got standard layout here, WAD details here, software and settings here, and channel tracking on this side. And this is the Plutonia Experiment. So with the WADs that we'll be using, just to be aware of this, we're obviously using the original Plutonia iWAD. That makes a lot of sense. And then we'll be using the Plut MIDI WAD, which is the Plutonia MIDI pack I've just mentioned, released by James Paddock. And again, with all of these, all the details will be in the description. And I'm also using another community released WAD, which is a PWAD, to fix some bugs or discrepancies in the sprites that are used in it. So again, a bit of a hustle by the Doom community to tidy up some of the original sprites. And these sprites are things like, you know, the sprites for the weapons or monsters, so just the visuals for those. And there are some old legacy things like incorrect pixels in certain locations and so on. Those have been tidied up and re-released. So I'll be using those as well, because I like to support the community who are putting all this work into Doom for us and for our benefit. So in terms of the WADs, you can see the levels here, the maps and so on. If you look at the enemy counts are not that high. And I think, you know, it kind of feels a bit awkward when you say that, you know, the enemy count isn't anywhere near as high as it has been for Memento Mori, but still this is a very challenging map set to play. And the reality here is that, you know, the whole emphasis on the Plutonia Experiment is to be very specific about the use of smaller numbers of enemies to create quite punishing maps for the player. So there's a lot of emphasis here on, you know, traps, sniping, and just generally unreasonable combat scenarios. So you can expect to feel a little bit trolled in some of these, where things will open up suddenly and you have loads of hit scan in your face and you need to deal with it and so on. So it's very effective use of smaller numbers of monsters to create very, very difficult maps. So that's what I'll be working through and focused on. You'll also notice here that there aren't really that many secrets as standard on the maps, so we won't be spending that much time maybe as we have done in the past in terms of secret hunting and so on. And then we'll just hop over to software and settings next. If I just scroll up slightly, you'll see here, you know, in the last playthrough of Memento Mori, we used PR Boom Plus version, our UMAP info version 261. We've now upgraded that to 262. So that's the latest release of PR Boom Plus UMAP info. And you can also see that we're using the final Doom, the Plutonia Experiment v1.9 iWAD. So obviously that's the iWAD we want to be using to play the Plutonia Experiment. The settings we're using, again, full screen. Skill 4 is ultraviolence, so that's what we're using. And then comp level 4 is the comp level setting that tells PR Boom Plus that we would like to use the original Final Doom engine to play the Final Doom Plutonia Experiment iWAD. Okay, and then for the launcher, we're using ZDL 3-1.1, which is a standard one we've always been using. So that's all of the software and settings. I can see from the channel planning side, not a lot has happened yet because we're very much in the early days here. But I've just had my first playthrough of the first map, Congo, but I'll be processing the maps for that, and I'll be putting those up on the website alongside the, you know, all of the other kind of playthroughs I'll be doing for this series. So as always, there's a standard thumbnail format I'll be using, and this is it. At the very top here, we've got the WAD name, which is the Plutonian Experiment. We've got the map ID, the map name, and then over on the side, we've got the final Doom logo and the Plutonia Experiment logo, just to provide a quick visual reference so you know which kind of playthroughs are part of the same series if you'd like to follow along. So really looking forward to getting into this one. Thanks very much for listening, and I will talk to you in the next one.